Hey, what's up, guys? It's Steven, and I'm back to talk more about building AI agents and specifically just trying to drive home conceptually what AI agents are and demystify some of the talking that's happening online about agentic systems and AI agents and so just to kind of recap over the last three videos, I think this will probably be the last one in this series. We've kind of established that the anatomy of an agent really boils down to three things. You've got the ability for it to talk to an LLM, which is sort of like its brain. It's got some sort of specific prompt that sort of gives the agent an identity or a personality. It sort of sets the tone for the agent's place in the world, the rules of the world it operates in, how it should respond, what it should do, what it shouldn't do. And then you also have probably the most important part for an agent, which is you're providing the agent with the ability to actually do specific things or take actions against specific systems through the use of tools or functions that you've implemented. They could also be provider hosted. For example, the Gemini API provides the ability to do Google searches or ground the model in Google searches. So it could be provider hosted, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be code that you wrote that you're going to tell the agent about, you're going to tell the LLM about, and you're going to say, hey, just so you know, if you need to do something to accomplish this user's query, you do have access to these tools and functions. You just need to let me know you want to use it, and you need to let my app know or provide my app with the correct inputs, the correct structure inputs to call that tool or call that function. So that's just a quick recap. And now what we've been doing is we've been trying to take that concept and actually implement that in code. And if you recall from the last video, if you watched it, is that we've basically gotten to the point where we have our LLM, we have our agent hooked up to an LLM. So it has a brain, it can talk to an LLM, it can perform some form of reasoning in the sense that LLMs reason. And then it also has the ability to do some calculations based on a tool that we've defined and told it about. So it can do plus, add, subtract, division, very simple arithmetic. It also has a very simplistic system prop that sort of, again, gives it an identity. In this case, it's just a really simple one that says you're an assistant and you should always talk like Yoda. And then we currently have the ability to take in the user's current query, pump that over to the LLM, get a response, and then down below, we're handling that response. So if we get text, we're writing that out. If we get a function call, we're calling that function. And right now, all we're doing is we're printing that function, the result of that function call to the console and pretending that we're responding as the LLM. So just to demo it working really quick, we'll say .NET index.cs. We should prompt the user for some input. We'll say, what is 2 plus 2? Now we should see some output. Part of the output will be from the LLM, but part of it's just our code pretending to be the LLM. So in this case, this part up here, the third line, that is the LLM. But this part here, this is actually our code. So this is us pretending to be the agent. And then what we want to do in this video is we actually want to kind of complete this whole agentic loop, right? We actually want to return the response, the function call response to the LLM so that the LLM can formulate a response back to us accordingly. So let's go ahead and drop our terminal again, and let's go back to our code. So the first thing we need to do is we need a way to represent the function response. And so the way the Gemini API works, I won't get too much into the weeds there because this is going to be different for every provider. But the way the Gemini API works is this part object is really polymorphic. It can be of a number of different shapes. So if you're doing this in the real world, you would probably have, in C#, you would probably have parts that represent the actual parts, and then you would, pattern match against them. But for this use case, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to define another optional property here, or another nullable property here that's going to be property of JSON property name, and this is going to be called a function response. And this is going to be of type function response. This doesn't exist yet, but we're going to create it really quickly. We're going to drop down here. We're going to say record function response. Now, function response looks almost identical to a function call, The only difference is that instead of arguments, we're going to return something called a response, right? Pretty simple. So this will be a response, and instead of doing a JSON object, we'll actually do, because JSON object is kind of specific to what we're parsing up above, we're going to actually just do a plain old object, and then that will get serialized to a nice JSON object with just kind of an anonymous type to it. And then what we need to do is we actually need to then return a function response from our code above. So right now, you can see when we call the calculator function, we're just getting that result and we're printing it. But in this case, what we want to actually do is we want to actually hand something back. Now, you can kind of see the problem here, right? So if we actually create a function, let's say function response equals new function response. This will be relatively easy to new up because we have all the information right here. So we'll just say, let's see, we need part.functionCall.id. So this is the same ID of the preceding function call. This is how that kind of connects the two together. We have part.functionCall.name, right? Because this response for the same named function. And then we have we have an anonymous object, and we're just going to set that. We're just going to give that a result property that's equal to the value of that result. And then we need to actually give this response back. So the way we're going to do that is we actually need to create some new function content, right? Which is going to be equal to new content. This content takes an array of parts with a role. In this case, this is really important to remember. The role here is user, right? The system didn't generate this, the user did. So when we add this to our conversation, we need to make sure this is represented as user content and not system or assistant, whatever model I think is what the Gemini API uses. So in this case, we'll just pass in our function response here as part of our array of parts. And this is complaining because we actually need to wrap this in a new call because it's a part. And then what's this complaining about? This is also needs to be wrapped, I think. Nope, we need to say null, pass that in. There you go. So that's how we're going to give back our function content. Now at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, great, we've got our function content. We just need to make another request to the API. And we could do that here. The problem is that the way the agentic loop works is that our LLM might respond with another function call, right? It could respond with text, but it might respond with another function call. So are we just going to like arbitrarily nest if statements down? No, come on. We're smarter programmers than that. So what we need to do is we really need to turn this into somewhat of a loop where we're just continually building up content for the request to the LLM. And then at the top of the loop, we're sort of deciding whose turn it is. Is it the user's turn? Is it the LLM's turn? And then sending the properly constructed request with all that message history to the LLM1 so that we have the proper alternating conversation history. And then two, that way the LLM sort of has a memory at this point where now every time we send a request to it, it has all the context of the preceding turns. Because without us explicitly sending that, the LLM has no state, right? It doesn't remember that it talked to us about some calculation 3 turns ago. So what we need to do here is we actually need to go up to where we're building our request. And instead of inlining this here in our content request, we actually need to create a new variable a little higher up. Let's actually create this up here. And we'll say list of content, right? So this is the content that's going to go in our request. It doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? List of content equals content. Actually, let's call this Gemini request content equals an empty array. That nice collection initialization feature in C# is wonderful. I love it. And then what we'll do is we'll come down here and we'll say, okay, we need the user query, right? But the way we're going to get that is once we have it, we're actually going to say Gemini request content.add user query, and we're going to new that up. So we're going to say new, like this. And why is this complaining? Because this needs a role. Then this needs an array. That. And then this also needs to be newed up because it's a part. Okay, now we've added our user content for that turn. And now down here, instead of this being the query, we're just going to spread the existing Gemini request content into that list. Now, why is it complaining about that? Unexpected. Oh, we just need 2 dots, not 3. This isn't JavaScript, TypeScript. So we'll spread that in. And now what we'll do is we'll make a request with whatever content is currently in that list of content. And then down below here, what we'll do is when we get the response, we are going to add the content from the response to our global list, you can call it. So we'll say Gemini request content dot add, and in this case we can just say content dot candidates. I know the naming here is not great. dot content, like that. And then down below here, we'll handle each of the parts in that content. So we'll print that out to the console, or we'll call the function and get the response. But down here, what we need to do is we need to add this. So when we get our function content, we need to say Gemini request content dot add. Now you might say, well, why aren't you adding the text and why aren't you adding the function call? That's already taken care of by this line up here at the top. Before I start looping, I've already collected all that content from the response. So we'll say add function content. So now if we look at this in a single pass, what we'll have is we'll have an empty list to start with. Then we're going to stick a user query in it, and we're going to send that. When it comes back, it's going to have a response from the LLM, which is likely going to be, in this case, because of the way we're prompting it, probably some text and also a function call. So we have user, model, which is going to have content, probably multiple parts, probably a part for text and a part for the function call. Then we come down here, and for the function call, now we're going to add a third piece of content, which is more user content, but it's not text, it's a function response. Now we need to put this in a loop, right? So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, take all of this information and say from, I guess, console reset color here, we'll say, give me all of this. Actually, hold on, before I do that, let me write my loop, otherwise I'm going to screw this up. We'll say, while true, right? So we'll just have an endless loop. And you could have some sort of cancellation sequence that the user could provide. But we'll say, while true, do this. Give me all of that, I think, is what we want. Nope. We want all of the brackets. So give me all of this, and stick it in a loop and format it. So now what we'll do is we'll say, okay, when we enter the loop, ask the user for input. Now, there's a problem here though, right? Because if the user's input comes from the function call, we don't want the user to give more input at that point, right? It's not the user's turn. We're still actually on the model's turn. The user just had to provide the function response. So we need to actually figure out whose turn it is at the top of our loop. Is it our turn or is it our agent's turn? So let's create a Boolean that's var is user turn. And the way we can figure out whose turn it is we can look at our Gemini request content list and we can say, okay, what's the last, or we'll just say last or default. That way it doesn't throw if there's nothing there. And we'll say if the role of that part is not user, right? That means it is the user's turn, meaning the last message is from the model. That means it's waiting for user input. If the last message is a function response from the user, right? Well, then we just skip over asking the user for input. So let's come down here and now let's use that. Let's say if is user turn, then we will get the user input and we'll add it to our list. Otherwise, we won't. So the first time through, it will definitely be our turn, but on subsequent requests, it may not be. So I think with all that in place now, we've kind of completed, okay, going back to our nice drawing from the Gemini API docs, we've kind of completed the full loop here where we send it the user's query, then Gemini might decide, hey, I want to call a function, in which case we'll call the function, we'll give it back to our user, the user will execute it, the user returns the result of the function. Now the LLM decides, does it want to call another function? Does it want to provide a response? In either case, our loop goes on and it handles all those cases just fine. So let's go ahead and go back to our code. And now actually let's try to run this. And hopefully, if I've done this correctly, it will work just fine. So let's say .NET index.cs. And then let's ask our model, what is 2 plus 2? And hopefully we'll get a response back from the agent now that will inform us of what the answer is. Taking a couple minutes. Yes, 4, the answer is. Because there was actually the call that sent our query, and then there was the call that ran the calculator function. And now that we're building up that history, we can actually ask it. We can say, what was the result of the last calculation you performed? And again, this time it should be a little shorter response because it's not going to call a tool. It's just going to tell us the last calculation for its result was. Now, I've got a little bit of a bug here because I don't have the color swapping just right, but I should be able to carry on this conversation. And again, it's just going to build up. Now, there are some other things we probably need to talk about when it comes to agents. Like if we go back and look at our code, we probably need to talk about doing better error handling. We need to talk about dealing with context window limits, but that's kind of stuff that goes a little bit deeper than I really want to go in this series. I'm hoping, though, by just kind of stepping through this very rudimentary implementation of an agent, that you sort of have a better idea of what an agent is when people talk about them and conceptually can speak to them a little bit better. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize for harping on this for several videos in a row, but I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping it was useful and helpful. And if it was, I'd love to hear from you in the comments or find me on Bluesky. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in another video, another stream, another short. I hope you have a good rest of your day. All right, bye guys.